Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio Mr. Russ Cato, a retired educator of more than 40 plus years in the Pinellas County schools. And Mr. Jamie Wilson III, a healthcare provider with more than 25 years of service as a physical therapist, my co-host. We're more than pleased to have Dr. Pastor G.Greg Murray and his beautiful wife, Lady Pauline, joining us today. They're here to share their thoughts, knowledge, and opinions about food in our community. Food, food, food. We can talk for days about food concerns in our country, states, cities, and communities. Whether our discussions involve the farming, ranching, or manufacturing of our food, to the storing, transportation, marketing, and eventual stocking of our food in the grocery stores and restaurants. Food is a very high priority concern. Food, by its very nature or definition, refers to items that have nutritional values necessary for sustaining growth and life. This definition forms the basis for the numerous media reports, community discussions, and development proposals concerning the Tangerine Plaza property in the Midtown area of St. Petersburg. The residents need and want nutritious food items without having to travel 2 miles to get it. We're going to focus today's discussion on good nutrition and how our quality of life is impacted by its prevalence or lack thereof. Pastor Murray and Lady Pauline, welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast.
Thank you, Brother Ray. It's good to be here.
Certainly, we're pleased to have you, by all means.
My pleasure.
Yes. I ask that the two of you share a little information about yourselves with our listeners. Information such as where were you born, raised, and educated? Starting with you, Pastor.
Thank you, Ray. G.Greg Murray, pastor of the Mount Zion Primitive Baptist Church here in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was educated in higher learning institutions. I received my bachelor's in social work from Syracuse University in New York, my master's of divinity from the prestigious Colgate-Rochester Divinity School in Rochester, New York, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also received his master's of divinity. And I have a honorary doctorate from the St. Thomas Christian University in Jacksonville, Florida, and I received my doctorate of divinity from the Dominion Theological Seminary in New York.
Awesome. Awesome. And you, Lady Pauline.
Okay, Pauline Murray, and I was born in Key West, Florida. True Floridian. I was raised in a small town near Miami, Clewiston, Florida.
Okay.
I guess they call it the home of the brown sugar because they have a sugar mill there where my parents worked mostly. And I went to my undergraduate at Allen University in Columbia, South Carolina, where I have a degree in psychology and minor in sociology.
Excellent,
Okay.
excellent.
And like you said earlier, I was Miss Allen University.
Okay, all right.
I worked for over 20 years for the State of Florida Department of Children and Families. I was a supervisor for 11 of those years, where I ran a department at foster care. And for the past 15 years, I've been working in our community, health and nutrition. I am a health, nutrition, wellness, and weight loss consultant.
Very good.
All right. Weight loss consultant, help me out. Help me out. Well, certainly we appreciate the information the two of you just provided to our listeners, and we're going to move on to the questions such as Lady Pauline.
Yes.
Please share with us the many years of work you have been doing in our community involving food and nutrition.
Well, it goes back to myself. I have systemic lupus and
What's the name of it again?
systemic
Okay.
lupus. It's a chronic immune disease, and there is no cure. So in order for me to help myself, I began to educate myself on what I needed to do in order to have a better quality of life. And it all came back to food, what I was eating, my environment, those kinds of things. So as I was educating myself, taking classes, getting certifications, I have many years of certifications and training in the area of health and nutrition, supplementation, those things. And as I was educating myself, I said, my people, we need to know about this. I didn't know about it. I didn't know that things that I was eating was causing inflammation in my system. I had no idea. So God laid it on my heart that I can educate my people, my community, the ones that look like me, help other people with lupus and other diseases, other chronic immune diseases. And that's what I set out to do. I was obedient to the Lord, and I started going out into the community to different events and different, I was invited to different churches, and basically I've been all over the United States teaching health and nutrition and how we can help heal ourselves with food.
Well, you've said quite a bit there that is so important for our listeners and for us to know.
Yes.
I know for a fact that I gravitated very closely to a couple of things you said when you mentioned inflammation in your system. I personally am dealing with a lot of inflammation in my system. As I sit here, my body is racked with inflammation. And I'm going to go and do lab work on Wednesday so a rheumatologist can get a sense of just how much inflammation is in my system. Very important. Very important. Did you want to say something about that question in terms of what you might have been doing? Because I know you've worked hard in terms of your personal health, as she was working with her personal health.
Certainly. And I'm glad for her. I thank God for her to help me.
We all are glad for her.
The issues and educate me on certain things, but it might seem odd that a pastor is sitting here and we're talking about food. We're not talking about the Holy Spirit or anything like that, but that's the mindset we have to change. Because if you're going, when you're serving God, when you are in contact with the creator of the universe, you need to understand that he wants us to be a part of, he wants to be a part of our lives in terms of our mind, our body, and our soul. Not just our soul. We have we have expertise on, hitting for the soul and feeding the soul. But what about the body? What about the mind? And all of those things overlap in terms of God's beautiful creation called us. And so I'm here hopefully to be able to get garner attention to that churches, pastors, we need to be really ministering to our people on 3 levels: mind, getting our mentality correct, our psychology correct, our bodies, our temples, and also, of course, our spirits and our souls.
You're so right. Mind, body, and soul. You got to work on them all.
Yes.
You work on the mind and you neglect the body. What's the use?
Yep.
Exactly.
What's the use? Either of you want to ask any questions at this point?
Yeah, I think my whole thing about is, and you mentioned a few minutes ago what food is the growth of life, and that's what you were saying. But my concern as I look at the Black community and dealing with this In other words, I look at our kids, the stuff that they're eating in their body, and our kids are just getting out of whack.
I want to talk a little bit about that too.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's why I want to come. And it must be a hard job because the culture of our history is dealing with bad foods, poor nutrition. That's what we were reared off of,
Yes.
you know. So how do you work at that? How do you change that kind of atmosphere or environment?
You are so correct. This is generational.
Yes,
Excellent.
The way we eat our
Yeah.
foods, the way we prepare our foods,
yes,
it's generational.
yes.
It's one of the generational curses, I call it.
Okay,
And food can be our friend, but food can also be our enemy.
yes,
When we eat hydrogenated oils
yes.
that the French fries are cooked with
Yeah.
from these fast food places, if you bring hydrogenated oil to 90 degrees, which our bodies is over 90 degrees, it turns into plastic. This plastic attaches to your arteries and can cause heart attack. It's also inflammatory. Okay, when we eat white bread, donuts, buns, things like that, hot dog buns, that's not wheat buns. Okay, when we were in school, what made paste? Flour and water made paste. That's what these things are made of. So when we put them in our system, then now our arteries have paste in them. So what we need to teach our kids is basic things. Just like we teach them ABCs, we need to teach them the basics of properly eating food. And there is hope, okay? Because as you turn it around and stop giving our kids these hamburgers from these fast food places, all these things that's killing them, all these generational habits, we need to break that. We need to break those things and teach them that eat an apple, eat some celery. As adults and children, we should be eating 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. We're supposed to have at least 21 grams of protein per each meal. Those are the ways that we're going to make ourselves healthy and make our kids healthy. My kids grew up the way I'm talking right now. My daughter's baby will eat a carrot before she will eat a piece of candy. But we have to teach the ABCs of proper food nutrition to our children. That's how we turn it around.
Powerful, very powerful. Jamie, you wanted to say something?
Yes, we're back talking to food and food choices. Talking about food and food choices. It's an economic, it's a uneducated population on, as you said, on the food, but also think about it. These little corner stores that's in the neighborhood, people can't drive to go to viable, good food places, maybe like a Publix. So they're gonna throw the little corner market, and you're getting all the potato chips, soda, all the little junk, and then to cut some meat. A lot of that meat, I was told by someone that works in Publix, JJ Singer, that works in Publix, a lot of that meat don't even make the cut to go in the Winn-Dixie or the Publix. So that's why it's sold in meat houses. Not to say all meat houses are bad, but we're talking about quality of meat, healthiness. So things like that, and the gravies we use, like you say, the old way of cooking, a lot of that has a lot to do with it. It is, and you were talking about water and flour and paste. You're right, because once that's clogged, unless it's surgical intervention, they'll tell you to take stuff for cholesterol or whatever, but that plaque is still there, and the lumen of the artery is getting smaller and smaller. Have your heart attacks and strokes.
It goes back to education. It's education. We have to educate our children, even within whatever your financial limitations are. You can eat the best you can eat within your financial. You can go to the corner store and you look at the labels. Okay, this has a zillion things on the back of it. That's not good for my kids.
Right.
Okay, so even within that situation, we just have to be educated as to what not to get. We can't, don't get the potato chips over there from the corner store, but they have some apples in there.
They do.
They have some raisins in there. They have something in there that's going to be more nutritious than the potato chips.
Correct.
Education.
And this has to be a lifestyle change. It can't be for this day or for this week.
Right.
It has to be a lifestyle change.
Exactly.
That's hard.
Yes.
That's
It's
hard.
very difficult.
Yes. And I know And Pastor, you and I just had a recent conversation about this. I know things that I generally shouldn't put in my mouth. I know that. But there are times where my knowledge is just irrelevant. I want it. I want it. And I know I shouldn't have it. And I go ahead and do the wrong thing because it's just so hard to break some of these habits that we've had for years. I'll tell you, I'm shocked that I don't weigh 500 pounds based on my eating habits from long ago. And I'm saying that in all seriousness. I used to eat so much food that I couldn't walk. And I remember we were out of state at a casino, a group of us, might have been 40 of us. I had never been to a banquet, a casino banquet, when they got so much food. I was stupid enough to think that that whole banquet was for me. You know, I felt like it was for me. I ate so much that I had to wobble back to my room. And when I got back to my room to take a shower, I had to sit down in the tub. I couldn't stand, I was so full. And I was doing that regularly. So when I say I'm shocked that I don't weigh 500 pounds or didn't get to that point, I'm serious. I used to refuse to go to my in-laws' house during Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners. I would tell my wife, bring me a plate, because for me to go where all that food would be, it just wasn't good for me. I didn't have the discipline to be around a lot of food. So I wouldn't go. And I would tell her, bring me a plate. And let that be my way of trying to cut back. So I have to thank God. I have to thank God that one, I didn't get to 500 pounds. I was on my way at one time. And thank God that I'm even alive.
Yes.
You can eat yourself to death.
What we eat will kill us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You
So,
know,
Russ,
yeah, one thing I want to ask you about, and you mentioned it a few minutes ago, because I know money plays the most important part in a person's life and things like that. Could you explain to us what you mean by financial limitation? Because you said something,
Yes.
and I think that's the key,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Yeah,
It is. It
yeah,
is.
I think that's the key.
I agree.
Could
with
you
you.
explain that?
What I meant by that is no matter what your financial situation is, no matter where you are, because we all struggle with something
Yeah.
at some point in time in our lives, especially single moms, people not making, a lot of money these days, like educating on labels, looking at the labels,
Yes, yeah,
seeing
yeah.
how much salt, how much sugar, how many preservatives,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Even in the corner store, you can look at the labels and you
Mhm.
can go towards the items, like the raisins and the nuts and the apples and those kinds of things. And even though they're in a box, they're better than the ones in a can.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can get some peanut butter,
Yeah.
get some peanut butter and some wheat bread and give your kids instead of, all the candy, all the canned foods. So even within your financial situation, you still can make better choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see.
Mhm.
Well, let's focus on a particular disease. I know you talked about lupus and how you have had to make adjustments in your habits based on that. And Pastor, I know you had your issues.
Yes.
And you've had to make adjustments.
Yes.
And I've had my issues and I'm making adjustments. Just today, my wife asked me, Ray, which one you want? She had a can of this and a can of that. I said, the sodium is too high in both of those cans without me even having looked. I know sodium is high
Get rid
in
of the
canned
cans.
goods.
Yes.
So when she gave me the
And the
can of
preservatives.
lima beans,
Mhm.
I say, see, 620 milligrams of sodium.
Mhm.
That's too high. Person dealing with kidney disease has no business eating this much sodium. So let's talk about food as it relates to specific diseases?
I love that question.
Okay.
What we're eating, our foods are inflammatory. When you're eating those hamburgers, when you're eating that processed meats, when you're eating all that white bread, all those are inflammatory foods. When we're eating our collard greens with the ham hocks in it, that's inflammatory. You can have collard greens with smoked turkey and it's good for you. So all those inflammatory foods is causing inflammation in your body. Inflammation is the root cause of all diseases, all of them. Cancer, lupus, heart disease, high blood pressure, gout, diabetes. And I can go on and on and on. But all those diseases have one thing in common: inflammation. Inflammation is what we're putting in our system with the foods that we're eating. And we can turn that around. Take the inflammatory foods out, bring in anti-inflammatory foods like antioxidants, the fruits, the berries, the green vegetables, the broccolis, the collard greens with good meat in it. Take out the processed meats, which is processed meats are inflammatory. Take out the saturated fats. Saturated fats will clog your arteries. Take all of that out. Use the good oils, the olive oils, the coconut oils, those sorts of things. Okay, eat your fish. You know, you eat your fish with omegas, high in omegas. You have lean meat, turkeys, chicken, those kinds of things. Those are anti-inflammatory foods. Once you take your inflammatory foods out, your diseases can sometimes go away. You can make some diseases go away with just what you're eating.
Change your eating.
Drink your water, stay hydrated, do your cleanses at least once a year or every 6 months if you're on medications. Some medications can cause inflammation. Okay, you have to pay attention to that. Counteract that by anti-inflammatories. And you can do that with your food, and that's how it's done.
Well,
Changing culture.
well.
See, I'm married to this woman, and
The full
bless- what a blessing. But here's what's amazing about this in terms of our relationship with God,
Yeah.
because God put everything on this earth that we
Yes.
need.
Yes.
You know, man has kind of taken those resources and wanting to turn them into profit. And so he's poisoning our food. He's putting in things to preserve it and things to make it bigger and our meat. But here, my wife may just be one of the most important people in our congregation. The Bible says the wages of sin is death, and that's what we preach. The wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. Don't do that. Don't do this. But one of the 7 deadly sins listed is gluttony, overeating. And what you got to do is see our community and how we are getting
Yes.
more and more obese. And I'm gonna call it what it is. People want to hide it, and you know they got even clothes that make you look slimmer now. But we are unhealthy.
Yes.
And we are dying. And then if I really love the people in terms of what my message ought to be, then the wages of sin is death. So if gluttony is one of the sins, then that might be causing death in my congregation. And how dare I not address it? And it ought to begin with me. So when I married this woman, she began to look at me and my eating habits. I've had 2 heart attacks. Just recently had 3 stents put in. I have coronary artery disease. That's because I just loved and married this woman. And before that, I was just doing what I wanted to do and eating where I wanted to eat and not caring what I'm putting in my body. But she woke me up to that part of what God wants us to be. And that is healthy in our mind, healthy in our bodies, and healthy in our souls.
I mean, awesome for her to talk about the facts of food as she just described, and you're a living witness to what she described.
She's gonna make me live. She's gonna help me live longer, and I now I want to live longer.
And
Let me get serious about it.
Down
Yes,
tremendously.
yes. Thank you.
Quality of life.
Quality of life.
Feel better,
Quality of life.
preaching stronger. Why not get that to the people? Because maybe it's by design to try to destroy us with our diets and with our foods.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I had mentioned earlier, we can go days and days
Yeah.
talking about food.
Yes.
We can go days and days, whether it's all the other factors related to food that I mentioned or nutrition, simply nutrition. And that's what we're focused on. I went yesterday to Tangerine Plaza to speak to Miss Brubaker. She wasn't there, but I talked to a couple of other individuals who were there. And as I was leaving, I saw an elderly lady pushing a cart full of groceries she had gotten from the food project,
Positive impact.
positive
ministry.
impact. And further down, I saw a gentleman, older gentleman doing the same thing. The vast majority of the people getting food were in cars. They were getting boxes loaded in their cars. But as I saw those individuals pushing carts, I said, what if Miss Brubaker and her group were not here to offer these people this food? What would they do?
Well,
know.
they're not going to be there too much longer because the city has supposedly transferred that Tangerine Plaza to a group that has put in a bid for it. I believe it's the Sugar Hill Group, if I'm not mistaken.
I
So that
think,
means they're going to have to stop what they're doing, Positive Impact
I
Ministries,
think technically they have up to about a year because
to come up with, yes.
the group that has been granted possession of that property, they have a year and a half to come up with the money. Go figure. Go figure.
I'm wondering why would we not understand the importance of what Positive Impact Ministries is doing in terms of bringing healthy food to the South Side, which is predominantly the Black community. You see the cars that are there on Saturday mornings, it's over 700 to 1,000 cars
I was there and
that
I
they are
saw that.
feeding there. The South Side is known, that area is known as a food desert, which means there's not a place that you can go to within a few miles to get healthy food. So why wouldn't the city, take that in mind? And look at, if we're going to do anything with Tangerine Plaza, let's look at her vision, Positive Impact's vision for our community.
Yeah, but you know what is happening here, and I'm listening to your conversation. When you talk about food in a Black community, that's what we need.
That's what
Let's
we
look
need.
at it.
Yes.
But the problem is re-educating people. Great, I look at your age, I look at mine, look at Jamie. We get it. We know what it is. Like she's telling, we know what's happening to us. But what about these young kids? That's the thing I'm saying. How can you get that over to them, to the families? That's what I'm saying. The grown people, 30. I look at these kids eating juices and all this stuff at the park, man. That thing scares the hell out of me.
And they're fat. and
These
young.
kids getting bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have gone to the schools and spoken with groups in the schools, and that's what we have to do more of
Yeah,
in our churches.
yeah.
Definitely in our churches.
I agree.
Just like we teach Sunday school, we can also teach the basics of good eating habits.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parents aren't there with their kids in Sunday school, but I believe that it's our responsibility as community leaders that we should be able to, teach these kids. My son, Julian, he works with kids with financial literacy, so just like you can work with kids with that, you can work with kids, whatever environment they're in, eat an apple, eat this, just basic food, healthiness.
Right.
I saw that great
Educating.
thing right here, number 7, say eat now, eat it now and pay later.
Yeah, what I wanted to get into is some adages related to food, such as an apple a day keeps the doctor away, et cetera, but we don't have time. This is only 30 minutes and we have heard some great things,
Yeah.
excellent show. With that in mind, I want to say thanks to Pastor Murray and Lady Pauline for being here
Thanks
with
for
us
having me.
today and sharing
Thanks for
some
having us.
vital information. And there
appreciate
can be a follow-up.
Appreciate
There can definitely be a follow-up. I want to say thanks to my dynamic co-host for a job well
Oh, yeah,
done.
these brothers,
Yes.
these
And
brothers are
every-
heavy hitters.
Yes.
Yes, heavy
They're
hitters.
heavy
right there.
hitters.
Heavy hitters.
Yes, they are.
We want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to the Ray Tampa podcast each and every Tuesday evening, 5:30 p.m. on 99.1 FM The Bird. And with all that being said, good evening.